Welcome back. You're still watching the Breakfast Show with Dina Hussein and myself, Muhammad Abdurrahim. Time now to talk about the economic impact of the virus outbreak globally. And with us now here in the studio is Dr. Zeinab Nawar, lecturer of economics. Thank you very much, Dr. Zeinab, for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Nawar.
My dear.
Let's talk about the talk of the hour. The global epidemic, how have it has had its grave impact over the economic path. But it varies from one country to the other. Is that true or no? And how are we going to be able to handle it with a new vision? Of course, we have to bow to reality and cope with the momentum and try to manage. So what is exactly the novel scenario or the novel coronavirus economic scenario?
The
new one.
Yes, the new one, it's still, we have one scenario on the scene, which is that we have a disease, some sort of disease, that caused the shutting down of all of the economic activities in China. Of course, the negative effects of what happened, we talk about that, a huge decrease in the GDP growth of the world economy, a huge decrease also in the GDP growth of China. China, the second largest
factories
economy.
are reopening, right, Dr. Zeinab?
They started, but they have been closed for a while.
Yes.
We are talking about the second largest economy. We are talking about the huge hub of economic activity of the world. The main exporter and the main importer also.
Yes.
So you can imagine that to what extent the trade and also all of the economic activities have been actually stopped.
You're taking it chronologically, so that's one. Yeah.
That's one. Number two, when we talk that this giant economy has been affected and also affecting the rest of the economy, I see that the effects, it's not, there is difference, of course, between countries, but when we talk about countries that are exporting and importing, no, there is a big effect and there is a recession. If other countries talk about the African countries, also they will be affected, but it has levels in terms of negative effects. But at all means, all the countries have been affected. By all means, there is a negative effect. There is a stop in trade.
So I know it's a difficult
in different
question.
Countries. Companies also closed, not in China, but also worldwide. The companies' operations have been affected because most of the giant and multinational companies are getting the raw materials from China. All of these companies, part of their production stopped, or they started to look for other markets. When they started to look for other markets to get the raw materials from, so they will find that these other markets in these countries have been affected. So again, the production of these countries also affected. So it is a huge thing. It's not an easy thing when we talk about the economic effect. A recession for all of the countries, there is no exception.
Global recession.
Global recession, yes.
So I know it's a difficult question, but who do you think, in your view, as an expert in this field, is the most affected and who is the least affected? Let's take it by, regions. We have China, we have Japan, we have Europe, we have the US, Africa. who will be the most affected, who will see the bigger damage in their economies, and who will see the less?
The most affected, those are neighboring countries to China, of course. All the Asian countries have been affected. All the countries that have had strong relations in terms of trade and economic activities with China have been affected. The US and Europe also have been affected. Africa, there is an effect, but maybe for the poorer countries, of course, the IMF is launching packages for the poor countries because poor countries have been affected. But when we see that some of these countries are depending on agriculture and not on industry, so some of these countries, their effect or their degree of recession will be less. But when we talk about industrial countries, no, there is a huge effect. So all the neighboring countries to China have been affected, the US affected, and Europe also affected.
But will the IMF have enough money to give to the poor countries or to the developing countries at a time when it might prioritize, the billion and trillion dollar stimulus packages in order to support the US and support, I mean, I don't want to go into politics here, but maybe because of the need now for hundreds of billions of dollars in the US and in Europe, that the IMF will give them priority over the developing countries.
The IMF,
We're afraid of that.
they have their own policies. And also they have their own strategies, what they are going to present. But this is the rule. If we talk about these international organizations, at time of crisis, at time of recession and depression, this is part of the rule, is to provide loans, concessional loans, to whatever country is in need. Maybe the US will not going to take a loan from the IMF. IMF, they are not giving this type of packages is for free. It's concessional loans. It's for countries will take this loan with certain facilities, like pay this loan on a longer time, small installments. So it depends on each country what exactly fits its country. But it's one of the rules of the IMF. And I think that also the World Bank is going to offer packages for the poor countries. So what they do, they are just they divide the rule between them. So maybe the IMF will have a certain package. Other international also institutions, we have also those who are working for the African countries, also providing aid to the African countries. Also, we have some of these international institutions providing aid to the Asian countries. So these all international institutions, they just try to divide the word and they will play it smartly. So I think that they will be smart enough not to say that Nigeria, for example, is asking for a loan from the IMF, and the IMF will not be able to provide them. This will not ever happen. They will play it smartly to support whatever the country is in need. Why the IMF is offering this, and why all these international institutions, they are trying to provide or to offer this money? Because part of the loss that happens in the international and global economy is the loss in the amount of exports. When we talk that there is a closure of companies, so there is no trade between countries. So part of the exportation revenue that each country is looking for have been lost because of the crisis. And number one, of course, we are thinking about the health of the people. So at this time, you look for priority. So the IMF and all of these international institutions, they're trying to support the budget of the countries to deal with the loss that happened because there is a loss in revenue. So this is part of the rule. And they try to play it smartly. I think so, yeah.
Right. Let's talk about an expected scenario, I mean, in the coming and until summer. Of course, it's going to be much more better when summertime comes.
Hopefully, inshallah.
Scientifically speaking,
yes.
hopefully, inshallah. Yes. But talking about a scenario of a COVID-19 induced recession, how would that look?
The scenario number one is
that
is
has
the
already
recovery.
happened, right? That has already happened.
We've
heard
China, but we started to have problems in Italy.
saying, yeah.
We started to have problems in other countries. I mean, it started in one country and then it will be recovered, but other countries in recession, so they need to be recovered.
In case China is recovering and going back to its normal again, regardless of what's happening around it worldwide, but China is okay now and is recovering, open up its industry again, and life is going back to normal and everything is going
but after the damage that was
right.
It will take some time.
Is that going to boost, give an empower and an enforce later on to the world economy?
It will happen, but it will take some time because you still have other spots in the world that have been affected. You still have other spots.
You talked about the raw materials, you talked about many things. I mean, bases that are taken, imported from China, as we all know.
Yes. Even here we need to have some, برضو have been affected for some of the company. They used to get the raw. I have a friend who has a factory. He said that he has a problem because he just needs to get the raw material from China and he doesn't know what to do. So he looked for another option from India, and then he found that the raw material from India is more expensive than China. I mean, they started to recover in China, but it will take time. I mean, this is not meaning that once they recover, so we will go back to the normal economic activities on the spot. This will not happen. Things will take time. So once the recovery in China is going to take its time, and they will back to their normal work and their normal also economic activities, and hopefully the other countries also to be recovered, because if other countries like the US, like Italy, other European countries, they are not recovered, so we're still in problem also, still in this in the issue. Even here in Egypt, we are closing our borders. There is no trade in imports.
Yeah, the tourism
We
sector,
have
of course,
lessened
is
this
ban on
being
flights.
because we
affected.
want to lessen the interactive with the other foreigners coming, whether
true.
it's they're coming for
So
for
let us
tourists
ask you
or they're
about
coming
Egypt,
for trade.
Dr. Zeinab, and we had a very good growth of 5.6% before this crisis. The Egyptian government has taken a lot of measures, including the central bank, of course, cutting the interest rate, the government reducing the gas.
Which is the worst, cutting on interest rates.
No, but a lot of other people would support
Of
that
course.
because it boosts investment and it boosts,
Right.
it
know
makes
that.
the economy going. Lowering of natural gas and electricity prices to industries, easing of payment of loans for SMEs and touristic facilities, lowering of taxes on the stock market dealings. So a lot of measures. How do you see Egypt coping with the global outbreak? And alhamdulillah, we are controlling it so far. I mean, the coronavirus, we are controlling it to relatively acceptable levels, even according to the WHO testimony. How do you see the Egyptian economy?
I see that we had dealt with the crisis actually very smart, putting a very into the point policies. We are now dealing with the crisis. So number one, again, it's the health of the population, which is we are efficiently working on this. And we have to talk about the 100 billion that have been assigned also to the hospitals, which was the most important thing. This is number one.
Yes.
Number two, all this package of economic policies, what was the purpose of all of this? Is trying to, to maintain the level of consumption also. Is trying to also to encourage and to support the manufacturer, the Egyptian manufacturer, that if you have a problem, you cannot get your raw materials, so maybe you will not be able to pay your installments at banks. So there is some sort of deferment of paying this loan for 6 months. So the government is supporting the Egyptian manufacturer to counter any negative consequences of this crisis, and also to support us as consumers, trying the government through these tax exemptions, what the government wants to do, trying to enhance consumption. We don't want that the consumers stop consuming. No, we still want the Egyptians to consume, because we still want the Egyptian manufacturers to produce. Even the Egyptian manufacturers are not able to export, at least they are able to produce domestically and to sell their products. So all of these policies meant to be actually done and implemented to do some sort of balance for the consumption and also for suppliers. So it was very important. In times of recessions, it's very normal for governments to put these types of policies to just keep the market and to keep the level, and also to protect the market from any further recession that could occur in future.
So you think we'll do fine?
Yes, we'll do fine, and hopefully that we will recover.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Unfortunately, again, that's all the time we have.
Right.
We've enjoyed having you, Dr. Zeinab Nawar,
Lecturer
of Economics. It's been very informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I guess that brings us to the end of this edition of the Breakfast Show for this beautiful morning. I had all the pleasure to be in the company of my dear colleague, Mohammed Abdurrahim. My name is Dina Sin. Many thanks to Dr. Zeinab Nawar for keeping our company on our second segment. And we all wish you a beautiful day, and you stay safe. Until we see you again tomorrow, that's a goodbye.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you to your viewers. Enjoy the sun.